I was hauling a trash bag past the Halcyon's marble steps when the rich man crumpled right in front of me like his knees forgot how to be knees. His head hit stone, the sound echoed big enough to turn every head, and the security guy planted a hand on my chest and told me to step back. I didn't. I tilted his chin, loosened his tie, called 911, and the dying billionaire locked eyes on the woman in red and rasped, "Come with me." They said his name was Graham Whitaker, the kind of name that buys floors of buildings, and they said mine like a problem. Candace, the night janitor, the girl in the red smock. In the ambulance, I kept counting his breaths, steady as a metronome, while his assistant Veronica hissed about image and liability, and the paramedic, this calm woman with kind eyes named Dr. Lila Nguyen, nodded at my hands and said, "Ud instincts" at St. Albans. The coffee tasted like punishment, and the lights were too bright for anyone's secrets. But he woke up anyway, voice like burnt paper, and said, "You stayed." I said, "You asked." Dr. Nguyen laid it out plain. Severe malnutrition, dehydration, a stomach that had forgotten how to work stress, hauling the rope tighter. Graham stared at the ceiling like it was keeping score. I recognized that look. Not just hunger, shame. And shame will starve you faster than a missed meal, you know what I mean. So I told them about my grandma Ruby, how she'd been too sick to keep anything down, and how we learned to cook, simple with intention. Soft eggs, a pinch of salt, a small square of butter, cooked slow, while you talk kindly to the plate like you're asking it to carry something tender across a rough bridge. Veronica almost rolled her eyes out of her head, but Dr. Nguyen said, "It's worth a try." The hospital kitchen wasn't going to let me in, so the next day I walked into Graham's penthouse that looked like a magazine ad for loneliness. Perfect marble, perfect view, no footprints anywhere. And his private chef, Marco, flapped his hands and declared an egg was not cuisine. "It's a start," I told him. I boiled slow, peeled, slow set that butter on the yolk like a promise, and while I plated it, I did the thing my grandma taught me when fear took the words from my mouth. I asked the food to be gentle. Graham took a bite, waited for his body to revolt, and nothing happened. Not the usual wave, not the punch in the gut. "How do you feel?" I asked. He blinked, confused, a man who hadn't heard this word in months. "Hungry," he whispered, and then he cried. Quiet, private tears the kind men are taught to hide. Sky, my daughter, who was coloring at the table because babysitters cancel and life keeps going, looked up and said, "Amma, why is the fancy man crying?" I kissed her curls, because his body remembered something good. That became our rhythm. I showed up after my diner shift with a tote that said, "Produce," like it was a vow. We worked our way from eggs to toast to broth. Sky tore herbs with small, serious fingers. Marco learned that onions will tell you when they're ready. If you listen, Dr. Nguyen watched the numbers inch toward normal, and the phone started ringing. Not reporters yet. That circus was still setting up. But people with money who whispered like they were ordering contraband hope. Miles Porter, a biotech CEO who wore grief like a wrinkled suit, sat down in front of chicken soup and told me about his wife Margaret, who sang off key on Sundays and sprinkled paprika like confetti. He ate while he talked, and the eating softened the talking. And by the time his spoon hit the bottom of the bowl, he wasn't a CEO. He was a husband who had loved well and lost terribly. He wrote a check with too many zeros, called it gratitude, and said to use it for whoever couldn't pay. Pay what feels right. I told him and meant it. Then came Sofia Delgado, media queen who could command a network and couldn't take one bite around people, so we made grilled cheese and tomato soup. Marco buttered that bread like it was a cathedral, and she laughed mid-bite, startled and honest. I forgot food could taste like childhood. We weren't fixing bodies only. We were feeding the part of people that money can't feed, the part that wanted to be seen without being sold. We built a plan that wasn't a business plan so much as a promise. The rich checks covered the broke tables, Dr. Nguyen sent patients who needed care more than they needed a headline. We kept it small on purpose. Eye contact, phones away, names said like they mattered. That's when Rex Graham's advisor slid in with graphs and buzzwords asking me to franchise compassion. You can scale this, he said, like love was a software update. Rex, I told him, you can franchise pancakes, not presents. He didn't laugh. Then the twist hit. Elliot Crane walked through the door with a handshake built for ownership and an offer that would change anyone's tax bracket. $30 million a year, exclusive contract, a private estate, full staff train. The method put my name on centers in 10 cities. You'll help thousands, he said, voice smooth as a board table. You'll build a system. What I do isn't a system, I said. It's a table. Tables can be replicated, he pressed. Hire people. Write a manual. Scale. Doctor. Nguyen appeared like perfect timing, set her bag down and said what I was trying to say without the science words. The outcomes we're seeing only happen when the care is genuine. You can copy the motions, you can't mass-produce meaning. Elliot looked at me, not unkind, just surprised anyone would turn down a ladder that tall. Sky came in wearing her school uniform and announced Mama doesn't talk business at breakfast. Mornings are for family and gratitude. Elliot almost smiled. I didn't say yes, I didn't say no, I said, you're welcome to come as a person. Sit, eat, pay what feels right. But I don't belong to you. He left his card thick as a doorstop. I slept fine. The documentary happened because good rumors travel like pollen. Ava Park set up 2 cameras and promised no fake tears, no soundtracks telling folks what to feel. Miles told a joke Margaret would have loved. Sophia brought flowers from her grandma's garden. Dr. Nguyen held the hands of a surgeon whose palms had started to shake after a loss that wasn't her fault, and watched them steady over lasagna and quiet. When the lens turned to me, I told the egg story. 15 scared Grandma Ruby, too sick to swallow me, stirring slow and speaking love into a pan because fear had stolen the rest of my words. Ava lowered the camera and said, "The internet's going to argue about this." "Good," I said. "Let them argue while we feed whoever shows up." Somewhere between the headlines calling me a healer and a hoax, Graham asked me to marry him in the backyard, with Sky holding the ring like it was state secrets and a grilled cheese hissing on the skillet. I said yes. We threw a potluck wedding with good linen and better stories. Miles raised a glass and said, "She reminded me love doesn't die. It relocates." Sophia laughed and cried and didn't apologize. Dr. Nguyen said, "The data is good, but the dinner is better." It wasn't all applause. Veronica cornered me by the elevator and said, "Be honest. You like the power." I looked past the armor and saw the fear of being replaceable, of being seen. "Power is what you use when you can't get love," I said. "I'm not using anything. I'm offering something. You could offer it too." She scoffed, but a month later she came to dinner without the heels, didn't eat much, talked about growing up hungry for everything, and left with a loaf wrapped in a towel. Cole, the security guy who grabbed my arm that first night, showed up on a Sunday with a bag of oranges and a question about soup that didn't taste like hot water. I taught him to sweat onions until they stop complaining salt early so the carrots can carry it. He grinned like he'd learned a cheat code. Elliot came back too, alone this time, no convoy, no offer, just a father with a son who wouldn't call. He ate pork chops like my grandma made, cast iron thyme, a squeeze of lemon to make the pans sing, then stood on our porch and told his son the sentence that keeps families from becoming stories we only tell at funerals. I'm sorry. It didn't fix everything. It did fix something. Now here's the part that might start a fight in the comments. A senator's aide called last week about a pilot program to take what we do into hospitals and prisons, money, and oversight. Attached words like licensing that make my skin itch a little. Rex says sign, Dr. Nguyen says slow down, Elliot. Surprisingly, says protect it from becoming a brand. And Graham says he'll back whatever I choose and actually means it. Sky asked the only question that matters. Will people feel seen there, Mama? I'm thinking about that. From the hotel steps to this table, people have laughed at the girl in the red smock, rolled their eyes at the egg, waved money like a magic trick, and still. We kept feeding whoever walked in, and people kept remembering they were more than what hurt them. That's the win. That's the whole point. So pull up a chair in the comments and tell me straight. Would you take the 30 million or say no, like I did? Do love and attention belong at the center of medicine and boardrooms, or should they stay out of it? Have you watched someone get judged by a uniform or a bank account and then flip the room with basic decency? Share what you've seen, argue with me if you need to, and if this hit you at all, man, it to someone who could use a reminder that kindness isn't small. It's brave, it's practical, it works. And you don't need permission to start.